Tess was late. Not missed the train late or my coffee orders wrong late. No, this was Magic Market closes at midnight late, and the kind of place that didn't tolerate indecision or stragglers. She skidded down the cobbled path, her boots splashing through shallow puddles. The alley was quiet now, and for a second she wondered if she'd imagined it. But then there it was, the shimmering arch, the floating lights, a door in the side of reality. Tess adjusted her scarf and stepped through. The memory market wasn't like anything she'd seen in the city. No signs, no security, just a long, winding bazaar suspended over a soft purple mist. Floating stalls drifted on air currents. Glowing paper lanterns bobbed above every booth. And everywhere she looked, memories, tiny bottled whispers, jars full of laughter, paintings that changed when you blinked. People weren't buying clothes or gadgets. They were buying experiences. A night under fireworks, the smell of a childhood bedroom, the feeling of holding someone's hand for the very first time. Tess was supposed to meet her roommate, Lyra, who had convinced her this was just a vibe, but Lyra was nowhere in sight. Tess wandered past a stall where a woman clutched a memory like it was a newborn. Her eyes welled up. I've forgotten how much he smiled. Farther down, a boy paid 3 silver coins for a 10-minute memory of flying over a canyon. He floated off grinning. Tess had no intention of trading. This was just a tourist trap, right? A magical place that let people pretend. She passed a merchant with bottles of song lyrics. Another who sold smells. Fresh-cut grass. Grandpa's garage. Campfire smoke. They drifted through the air like perfume. Then she saw it. A dusty booth tucked between 2 floating planters. No lights. No music. Just a single object on display. A pocket watch. Tess froze. She knew that watch. She'd buried it with her father. The same scratch across the face. The chain he used to swing like a lasso. Even the tiny crack near the hinge from the time she'd dropped it at age 10. It couldn't be. But it was. She stepped forward. The merchant wore a faded cloak and a mask shaped like a wolf's skull. No nameplate. No words. Just a small sign. Trade only. What do you want for it? Tess asked, voice barely above a whisper. The merchant turned, reached below the stall, came back holding a memory. Not just any memory, her memory. A glowing sphere hovered between them, pulsing gently. Inside, she saw 2 figures beneath an autumn tree. Red leaves falling. A boy leaning in. Her younger self smiling. It was her first kiss. Tess blinked. The memory vanished. What happens if I trade it? She asked. The merchant said nothing, just pointed at the watch. Ticked softly. The sound of her childhood. She hesitated. Her first kiss was sweet, sure. But the watch? That was her dad. That was bedtime stories and scraped knees and being carried to the car when she fell asleep too early. She touched the glass sphere. A pulse. The merchant slid the watch forward. The memory flickered. Then it was gone. Tess felt strange. Not dizzy, not in pain. Just blank. She remembered the tree, the wind, the smell of cinnamon from the nearby vendor. But not who she kissed. Not even a face. Gone. And yet, she had the watch. Warm in her hand. Real. The merchant nodded once, then turned away. Tess walked slowly back into the crowd, holding the watch like a secret. Tess wandered aimlessly, the watch clutched tightly in her palm. The memory trade hadn't hurt, at least not in the way she expected. But it left something behind. A kind of emotional static. Like she knew something was missing, but her mind refused to say what. She passed a stall where a memory glowed soft blue. A girl reached for it, then stopped. Is that really mine? The girl asked. It doesn't feel like it. The merchant shrugged. Belonging is a matter of belief. That stuck with Tess. She turned to ask more. But the stall was gone. Ahead, a memory orb floated above a crate. It shimmered with hues of orange and rose. A man in a pressed green jacket stared at it, hands trembling. It's the day she said yes, he whispered. Tess looked closer. Inside the orb, 2 figures embraced beside a stream. Laughter echoed. And then the man reached forward and smashed the orb with his hand. The memory shattered into glimmering threads that drifted away. You can reject them? She asked. The man looked at her, grief etched across his brow. You can break what breaks you. He walked off, leaving nothing behind. Tess shivered. Further in, she saw another stall. This one didn't sell memories. It labeled them. Shelves held hundreds of vials, each labeled in a looping script. Almost. The one that got away. A door never opened. A girl browsed them like books. Are those regrets? Tess asked. The girl shook her head. Unlived possibilities. She held one up. This one's me as a musician. Tess frowned. But you're not a musician. I know. That's why it glows so bright. Tess stepped back, overwhelmed. Then someone tugged her sleeve. She turned. It was the child from earlier, the one who shouted about her selling her kiss. But now he was quiet. Thoughtful. She took something from you, he said. Who? He pointed behind her. There stood a woman. Mid-30s, maybe. Dark green coat. Pale hands holding a memory jar that glowed faintly red. Tess's heart skipped. There was something about the woman's eyes. Not threatening, but knowing. The woman stepped forward and held out the jar. I believe this is yours. Tess didn't move. That's not possible. I didn't trade for anything else. The woman tilted her head. Memories don't always wait for permission. Tess swallowed. Who are you? I'm someone who gave up something I shouldn't have, she said. And spent years trying to trace it back. Tess looked at the jar. Pulsed gently in time with her heartbeat. What is it? A memory you never made. But one you were meant to. Tess's fingers hovered over the glass. Wait, she whispered. If I take it, what happens? The woman's smile was sad. That depends. Sometimes we reclaim the future. Sometimes we just remember what might have been. Tess reached out. The jar clicked into her hands. Inside, the image sharpened. Tess and the woman sitting on a hilltop. Hands intertwined. Laughter and tears. And behind them, an older Tess. Wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. Joy in her voice. It wasn't a memory. It was a possibility. One Tess had never lived. One she might still. She looked up, but the woman was gone. Only the boy remained. He pointed toward the edge of the market, where a sign hovered in midair. Trades may echo beyond the market. Tess clutched the jar and stepped through a shimmered veil into another corridor of the market, one she hadn't noticed before. The lanterns here burned colder, flickering blue instead of gold. The stalls were older, more worn. Dust floated in slow motion as if time bent differently in this corner. Above the stalls, a sign hung, the forgotten section. There were no tourists here. No music. Just silence and merchants who didn't smile. One leaned on a counter stacked with hourglasses filled not with sand, but ink. Another sold memories that hadn't happened yet, priced in years of your future. Tess passed a stone bench where an old man sat clutching a shattered jar. He rocked slowly, whispering, I took her joy, just to feel it once. It chilled her. She kept walking, heart thudding. At the end of the row stood a pavilion made of hanging scrolls and torn maps. No merchant greeted her. But inside, a pedestal rose from the floor, and atop it, an ancient book. She approached. The cover read, The Architects of the Market. She opened it. The pages flipped on their own, until it landed on one marked by a dried lavender stem. The market was not born, it was uncovered. A ripple between realms where memory, time, and possibility converge. The architects, 12 in all, first stepped through the veil 1,000 years ago. They discovered that memory has mass, that emotion leaves echoes, that what we forget still exists. They built the market not to sell, but to balance. Every trade changes someone. Every stolen joy leaves behind a weight. All trades are final, unless broken by will or by blood. The last line made Tess frown. She turned the page. A sketch showed a figure with a mask, the same wolf mask as the merchant who gave her the watch. Beneath it, the collector of irregular trades. She felt a cold wind stir behind her. Turning, she saw the merchant. The same one, mask unchanged. No footsteps heard. You're one of them, she whispered. An architect. The merchant nodded slowly. Why me? She asked. Why the watch? Why that memory? He said nothing, but in his hands another jar appeared. Tess stepped closer. Inside was a memory, one she knew she never lived. She stood on a balcony overlooking stars. A younger version of her leaned over a child, reading from a glowing book. A woman stood beside her, older, the same woman from before. Tess's throat tightened. She understood. The market wasn't random. It didn't just collect what was forgotten. It redirected what was unfinished. The merchant finally spoke, the first time. Some memories are given back. Some are invitations. Tess looked at the jar. What do I give for it? She asked. He held out his hand. In his palm, her watch. What? He nodded once. Return it, he said. And the path remains open. Tess stared. The watch was her father, her childhood, her anchor, but the jar was her future. Will I lose him? She asked. No, the merchant said. You'll remember the parts that mattered. The rest will be felt, not recalled. She hesitated, then pressed the watch gently into his hand. The jar floated toward her, humming. She caught it, and something in her heart clicked into place. The orb pulsed once in Tess's hand, then melted into a wisp of light, drifting into her chest. She didn't feel pain. She felt full, like a part of her that had always been hollow had quietly filled without fanfare. Like finishing a sentence you didn't realize you'd started. The wolf-masked merchant stepped back. His mask shimmered, and for the first time Tess saw his eyes. Kind, tired, grateful. He gave a slight bow, then turned and walked into the curtain of scrolls. With a gust of wind, the pavilion vanished. Tess turned around. The stalls behind her had begun to dim. The mist under the floating platforms thickened. A soft bell chimed in the distance once, then twice. Closing time. She hurried past the empty shelves and fading lights, clutching the feeling inside her like it might slip away if she exhaled too deeply. At the arch where she first entered, a lantern swayed in the night breeze. A final sign hovered in the air, all markets close eventually. But some memories stay open. Tess stepped through. And just like that, the world returned. The alley was dark. Rain speckled her coat. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. 3 new messages from Lyra. Where are you? You better not have gotten lost again. I got a memory of someone else's wedding, LMAO. I'm crying in a good way. Tess smiled, heart still thumping. She walked out onto the sidewalk and looked up. The stars were unusually bright tonight. A soft wind blew, and for a moment she swore she heard laughter. Her own. Older. From somewhere not far. And then, a voice. Familiar. Tess. She turned. The woman from the market stood across the street. No memory jar this time. Just a scarf and a nervous smile. I think we were supposed to meet, she said awkwardly. Tess stepped forward slowly. You're real. The woman nodded. I think so. I followed something here. Like a feeling. Like I was supposed to come down this street. They stared at each other for a beat. And then, without knowing why, Tess laughed. The woman laughed too. What's your name? Tess asked. Ilara. They shook hands. The moment their palms met, something subtle passed between them. A shimmer behind the eyes. Not a memory exactly. But a promise. Maybe even the beginning of one. Weeks passed. Tess kept the watch on her nightstand. Though she never wounded anymore, it always ticked softly. She and Ilara started meeting once a week. No rush, no pressure. Just long walks, conversations that spiraled into laughter, and the occasional quiet moment where neither needed to speak. Tess never saw the market again. Not physically, but every now and then, she'd dream of glowing stalls and paper lanterns, of possibility bottled and traded, of a wolf-masked merchant watching from the mist. And when she woke, she remembered just enough to smile. Some markets sell food, some sell clothes, but if you're very lucky, and just a little lost, you might find one that trades in something far more valuable. The kind of market where you finally remember who you're meant to be. If you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. We post a brand new fantasy story every single day. Welcome to the vault.